It being 9:02 a.m. on February 27, 2024, I hereby call this session of the Special Magistrate proceeding for the City of Daytona Beach to order. My name is Robert Riggio. I will be serving today as the Special Magistrate, hearing these matters that are on the agenda, and I believe the agenda is posted over on the other wall. A couple of things. In case I forget, should matters take longer than expected, around 10:30, we will take a short 5 or 10 minute break. Please remind me if I forget. And as far as the procedure today, for those of you who may not been here before, basically I will call the case, and at that time, if you will come forward to the lectern will be on your right, my left, over on that side. And at that time, please provide your name to the board secretary, who will then swear you in. And because all of the testimony here is given under oath, at which time you will then be able to stand there for a moment while the city inspector goes through the details of what it is that the city has in terms of a case. And following that, you will then be given an opportunity to state your position, if there's any rebuttal, any denials, anything of that sort, and it will go back and forth, but you will be provided with an opportunity to respond. So please allow if there's a city inspector or Mr. Jackson who may at times come up to the podium to speak, allow him the opportunity to finish before you respond. But at that time, you will get as much opportunity as possible to respond. I want to hear your side of the matter just as I want to hear the city's side of the matter. All right. Do we have any announcements at this time? Okay. The third item on the agenda, I have approved the January 23, 2024 meeting minutes, and I've provided them to Ms. Barnes, and they are being filed for review or whatever. And at this time, before we get into the actual matters themselves, if the members of the city who will be giving testimony today or possibly giving testimony, please come forward to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. The first matter on the agenda is lien review 1, RTL 082333. Property is at 709 East International Speedway Boulevard, and the respondent was SIG Global FLP. I have been informed that the respondent has a family medical emergency and will not be able to attend today, but he has agreed to a reduction of the fine to $5,000, which I believe was discussed with him by the city. And unless anyone here has anything further to say, I will approve that.
I just asked Mr. Sykes, is that correct, the agreement?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We have no objection. We'll be great. That's our recommendation.
I saw Mr. Sykes nodding his head, but I guess you can't take that down in the record very easily. So, okay. Well, therefore, with respect to this matter, RTL 082333, property at 709 East International Speedway Boulevard, respondent being SIG Global FLP. I hereby order the lien in that case number to be reduced to the amount of $5,000, and is subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And although the respondent is here, should the respondent be listening in, I always make this one caveat, and that is if there is any problem in terms of paying the fine. Before the 30 days is up, please contact the city, because once the 30 days is up, it goes back to what it was. All right. Case number 2, lien review 2, CEB 02-2019, property at 140 Fountain Lake Boulevard, respondents being Demond O. and Nakithra Dean. Again, there was a fine due in that matter, or an outstanding fine, and I am informed, again, the respondent was not able to obtain, be at this meeting.
He is here. He's on
Oh.
Zoom.
I'm on
Oh,
Zoom.
he's on Zoom. Okay. And so, Ms. Tomengo, if you can proceed forward with what has been discussed between you and the respondent and city
Yes, I'm
staff.
Inspector LaWanda Tomingo. My credentials are on file with the city. We did have a meeting on February 21st where it was agreed between the respondent and the city to reduce the fine to $2,500.
All right.
Mr. Dean, can you hear me?
I can.
Could you
I
state,
can hear you.
could you state your name, please?
My name is Damon O. Dean.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Demond, you're agreeable to the $2,500?
Yes, sir. I'm agreeable.
Very good. Then that is what it will be. Therefore, let me pull this out. In case number CEB 02-2019, property at 140 Fountain Lake Boulevard, respondent being Demond O. and Nakithra Dean, I hereby order the lien in that case number to be reduced to the amount of $2,500, subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And Mr. Dean, I always give this caveat: if there is any problem in paying that amount within the 30 days, please contact the city attorney's office and let them know, because on the 30th day it reverts back unless some arrangement has been worked out beforehand.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is lien review 3, RTL 01-2408, 126 West Gardner Court, TR Property Group LLC, cited for failure to correct violations, etc., of the Land Development Code. There was an outstanding fine in the amount of $15,000, which is yet to be recorded. And there is a request to reduce that amount. Is anyone here on behalf of TR Property Group?
Excuse me, Your Honor, I have that individual as a Zoom participant, but they are not in the meeting.
Okay. Is that an attorney? Wow.
No,
No, I believe that is, Your Honor.
they're back there. That was Xavier.
Okay. For those who you may, that used to be open, and I'm hearing voices now from behind a wall. Mr. Yates,
Yes.
do you want to?
Oh, no, I was waiting to hear the request.
What does that mean that they are
Oh.
not in the meeting, but you have them, oh, you have them scheduled? I got you. I got you. I understand.
Okay. Who was supposed to be here on behalf of?
Raina Pearson is her name.
Okay. At this time, we'll just continue it until maybe a respondent shows. If there's no respondent and we don't have any word of why they're not here, then I'll be left to just deny the request.
That's fine.
So we will continue this. Hopefully, the respondent will make an appearance at some point. Okay. 2. All right. Now we're into the cases. Mr. Yates, we may be calling you back. I don't know. All right. Okay, our first case today is going to be case number 1, RTL 02-2420, Thomas P. Berry and Ralph K. Berry, cited for correct violations of city code at 428 Wisteria Road. Mr. Wexelberg, is there anyone here on behalf of the respondent, Thomas P. Berry or Ralph K. Berry? Okay,
Good morning, sir.
good morning.
Name's Carl Wexberg, City Inspector for Daytona Beach. Mentions are on file. This case RI 202-170, Ralph and Barry Thomas for 428 Wisteria. Fuel generated for failure to maintain a current rental license. The property was posted twice, both in December on the 21st as well as January 5th. I did conduct a site visit recently as 16th of this month, and they remain in non-compliance. At this point in time, we're asking for non-compliance with next cutoff.
Okay.
And just clarification, Mr. Magistrate, in terms of the style, it is Thomas Berry and Ralph Berry. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. You kind of said it a little different.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will be finding them in non-compliance based on your testimony and what I see. You might, if you contact them, let them know that the next hearing, they will be up for a consideration of a fine unless they get
sir.
things in order. And it's always worth their while to show up to these hearings. So therefore, in case number 1, RTL 02-2420, respondents being Thomas P. Berry and Ralph K. Berry for property at 428 Wisteria Road. I find the respondents to be in non-compliance and order the respondent to come into compliance by, is this March 20th, 2024?
Oh, yes, sir.
March 20th, 2024, or be returned to a hearing on March 26th, 2024, before a special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $1,000 per day. All right. Next case, case number 2, RTL 02-2425, TRSTE LLC trustee and 433 Marion Street Land Trust, who've been cited for failure to correct violations of city code at 433 Marion Street. Is there anyone here on behalf of TRSTE LLC Trust and 433 Marion Street Land Trust? There is no respondent present. Ms. Domingo?
Okay, this case was opened by citizen complaint for unlicensed rental. The owner was first notified November 13th of 2023 by posting of the property. I did do several site visits for this property and did confirm that it is tenant occupied. So I'm requesting, and the owner has not applied for a license or conducted an inspection of the property. So I'm asking compliance by next cutoff for this property.
Okay, well, you certainly, based on the testimony and the pictures, they need to come into compliance. So therefore, in case number 2, RTL 02-2425, respondents being TRSTE LLC Trust and 433 Marion Street Land Trust for property at 433 Marion Street. I find the respondents to be in non-compliance and order the respondents to come into compliance by March 24th, 2024, or be returned to a hearing before the special magistrate on March 26th, 2024 for consideration of a fine of up to $1,000 per day.
Thank you.
All right. Case number 3, RTL 02-2427, Ida Mae Pendleton, cited for failure to correct violations of city code at 811 Kingston. Is there anyone here on behalf of Ida Mae Pendleton? Please come forward. If you could be sworn in and state your name and your relationship to Ida Mae Pendleton and be sworn in by the clerk.
Your name, sir? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Mr. Riggio, Anthony Jackson, attorney for the city. Ms. Pendleton is recently deceased. Well, I'm not sure what this gentleman is, if he's a relative or what his status would be. So I would like to know that so that we can decide how we want to proceed with this case,
Oh,
or if we're proceeding at all.
is this property, is this in probate or anything?
It's going through probate now.
Okay.
The relationship, I guess, would be my question of this gentleman.
That was my mother.
That was your mother, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and proceed on that circumstance, and we'll just. I'm sorry.
Mr. Pendleton, or Mr., is it
McLeod.
Lau?
McLeod.
Malau, okay.
McLeod.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to have Mr. Reckenzone go through the particulars of this matter, but I understand at this point there may not be anybody who technically has control over the property if the property is going into probate. So, but at some point, someone will need to address the issues or else not have it rented out. So, Mr. Reckenzone, if you can go through what's...
Yes. This property came in as a complaint from animal control. The property was posted on May 9th of 2023. As of February 8th of 2024, the property was still in noncompliance. The tenants were still at the property when I posted the property for the hearing. They do not have a license on file. They haven't applied for a license yet.
Okay. Mr. Reckenzone, have you had an opportunity to go into the property and...
No.
Okay. Mr. Malau, there are certain life safety things such as
McLeod.
fire...
McLeod.
McLeod, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. McLeod, there are certain life safety things such as fire, smoke detectors and things like that. Do you know if they're in the building?
No, there's not. No smoke detectors is in the building.
Okay. Is there anyone who is likely to end up with possession of this property?
I am.
Okay, it would be worth your time to at least go through and make sure there's things like smoke detectors in the building. So if there's a fire or something, then, and you can talk with Mr. Reckenzone about that. And I don't know if there are other life safety things. I assume it looks like the property on the outside looks in good condition.
Yes, what happened was I had got a letter that was posted about the condition of it, with peeling paint and painting and debris, so we took care of that.
Okay. It might just be good if you coordinate further with Mr. Reckenzone, like, for instance, smoke detectors. And so while it's going through probate, because at this point, I don't know, Mr. Jackson, does the city have any idea of who you would end up citing at this point? Because no one technically it's in the probate process.
Typically, we'll be citing the estate, and that's what we'll be doing in this circumstance. So, I mean, we've cited Ms. Pendleton. We'll just do it as Ms. Pendleton's estate. My understanding, and Mr. McLeod could correct me, but I think our staff is aware that I guess his brothers have already kind of turned over their interest to him, and so it may be a lot closer, a quicker process in terms of the probate itself, maybe more summary.
Okay. Well, Mr. McLeod, I'm sorry for your loss, and we'd
Thank
like
you.
to try to make this go as smoothly as possible so
I
that
appreciate it.
focus on other things and get this resolved simply. Okay. So at this time, would the city's recommendation be to continue this matter?
Well, the property is in non-compliance, and it's really against the property at this stage until we start talking more about whether or not there's ultimate penalty. But Mr. Cloud is here, the estate was noticed, he's here in essence on behalf of the estate.
Okay.
So we would like to at least make the finding and proceed from there.
I'd hate to drag them back in for a non-compliance hearing if they're going to be, there's no technical individual or entity that a fine can be levied against at that point.
Right, so we'll obviously want to provide them reasonable time to comply.
So what would be a good time? I'd like to, 2 or 3 months?
That's fine with it.
Okay. How about May 22nd?
That sounds reasonable, I think.
And-
Getting the nods. Yep, that appears to be reasonable from staff.
And if Mr. McLeod, if things don't go, if there's unexpected hiccups in the process, please contact Mr. Reckenzone. I'm trying to work through this so it goes as easily as possible.
And I appreciate it, really appreciate it.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Ridgeo, in fact, just make sure you keep in contact with him through the process so he knows what's going on and be able to assist you in any way that the
Sure.
staff can.
I will.
Okay.
Therefore, in case number 3, RTL 02-2427, the respondent being Ida Mae Pendleton, who is now deceased, for property at 811 Kingston, I find the respondent to be in non-compliance in order to respond, come into compliance by May 22nd, 2024, or be returned to a hearing before a special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $1,000 per day, which is our standard order. But again, work with Mr. Reckenzone and keep in contact with him, and we'll hopefully get you through this process.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some continued cases. Case number 4, RTL 01-2412, Bradford J. Bowles, cite for failure to correct violations of city code at 924 Vine Street. This matter is here for consideration of the imposition of a fine. Is there anyone here on behalf of Bradford J. Bowles? There is no respondent present. All right, Mr. Wexelberg.
Okay, case number RI 2023-0155, Bradford Bowles, 924 Vine, was field generated for failure to maintain a current rental license. Since the last hearing, we have had contact with the property manager.
Okay.
He has conducted some of the repairs, including some exterior cleanup that wasn't initially cited. And at this point in time, the property is not occupied. So we'd like to go ahead and amend to the next cutoff
Okay.
based on his progress and his cooperation at this time.
All right. That sounds fine with me. Therefore, in case number 4, RTL 01-2412, respondent being Bradford J. Bowles for property at 924 Vine Street, I hereby order the previous order of noncompliance be amended to allow the respondent until February 20, oh, we're in February, okay, March 20th. March 20th, 24, to bring the property into compliance or be returned to a proceeding before a special magistrate on March 26, 2024 for consideration of a fine of up to $1,000 per day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we now move on to irreparable and irreversible cases. First case being case number 5, RTL 02-2421, David Roberto Ruiz Calderon and Stephanie Marie Ruiz Calderon, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1A, Article 5, Section 5.2.A.2 at 476 Zelda Boulevard.
State your name
David Ruiz Calderon.
Gilberto Ruiz Calderon.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Yates, can you give us the particulars of this matter?
Inspector Yates, my credentials are on file. The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed January 25th, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property is still actively advertising as of today. The daily posted rate was $184. The advertisement displayed 9 review. The check-in, check-out time was shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. Due to the actions of the property owner and these being irreparable and irreversible, the city is asking for a one-time fine of $15,000.
Okay. Mr. Ruiz Calderon, this is your opportunity to, sorry. Mr. Jackson, you have something you want to add to this, I suspect.
Yes, Ms. Riggio and Mr. Calderon, as well as everyone else who's here listening and those who may be on Zoom. What I would like to do at this time, Mr. Riggio, is present the city's position regarding a determination that these actions be considered irreparable and irreversible in nature as provided in Chapter 162, Section 162.09, 1D of the Florida statute. And this would be the city's position for everyone to consider and have a right to respond to if they so elect. The nature of these violations are as follows. They're beneficial gain to the property owner who is advertising conduct that is prohibited by city code. Their effects are that they are rental properties that are being held out as vacation rentals, and that can't be reversed or repaired. The property is advertised worldwide, marketing a destination that draws people from all over the world for principal special events such as the Daytona 500 races, Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and throughout the spring and summer to the world's most famous beach. The properties may also be marketed as a draw to nearby destinations such as Disney World and Space Coast. Once the properties are advertised, they're never truly unadvertised. The reality of the World Wide Web is that you cannot push such advertisement back into the tube. Information posted today can be printed and saved, forwarded, retweeted, and even copied and pasted on other sites, which limits the city to the only solution for advertisement is to require that all postings be removed. SmartInsights.com marketing website provides that as of October 2023, 4.95 billion people around the world use social media and can be reached by advertisement. The information has long-range effects in luring patrons under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city. The patrons risk poor health, poor safety, and welfare due to unregulated or self-regulated vacation accommodations that patrons enter into at their own risk. One single day advertising can potentially book a property for the whole year. And these promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patron, and they're definitely to the detriment of the licensed hotels, motels, and the lawful vacation rentals that have gone through proper zoning regulation, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, and proper taxation that's required by law. The transient nature of the rentals limit the means of the enforcement typically to identifying advertisements. By the time code enforcement arrives to the properties, the transient patrons typically are gone from the property, or they claim some misleading relationship that are often contradicted by the advertised visitors' comments. The monetary effect of these unlawful rentals is tax avoidance, inadequate insurance coverage, and unfair business competition against lawful accommodations businesses and lawful vacation rentals. The community effect is that transient business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affect this density, parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods, and they diverge from the traditional and reliable residential norms. There is a demand from the business community to our commission, which has led to a request for a strong deterrent to those that are raking in profits, avoiding state and local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements, and regulatory controls. We have all seen rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize substantial fines as the only deterrent tool available. By the time we arrive and say stop, the beneficial gains are already realized. State law adopted by the city defines vacation rentals to include advertising for transient guests. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations be deemed irreparable or irreversible in nature as provided by the statute. And we ask then, pursuant to our statute, for you to look at the amount of the fine. And we have a criteria for that. One is to look at the gravity of the violation. We feel that based upon the concerns of our community, our business community, our commission, and we've seen it in other communities as well, that these would be substantial in nature, and that we would ask that in this circumstance where a property continues to advertise, that a fine of $15,000 is warranted. And the next thing we look at is the effort of the respondent or the violator, and in this instance, again, it gives at least the appearance that there's been no effort since it's still being advertised. It's still being made available, being held out as an action that's being taken by these respondents. So with that being considered, we ask for you to impose the fine of $15,000 as requested by the inspector.
Okay. Anything further?
I have nothing further on that issue.
Gentlemen?
So my wife and I originally purchased this property to be a vacation home for our family. My parents recently moved out of the Florida Keys, where they had a home in there for 20 years. So when my wife and I found an opportunity to maybe have a home by the water for our family to enjoy, we wanted to take advantage of it. During that time, we found out that we were expecting our second child in less than 2 years. And we recognized that we weren't going to be able to enjoy the property year round, but we still wanted to make the most of it. So we wanted to find the opportunity to help us at least cover the costs of owning the property while we did enjoy it during the summers with our family. I will admit I did not do enough due diligence to understand our zoning restrictions, and I apologize for that. But since our original notification on January 25th, we have, although it is still on the online websites, we have modified our requirement for stay to be a minimum of 180 days to match the 6-month requirement for the city for our zoning. And we have also applied for a rental license. As I understand, those were the 2 items that were required for us to actually rent the property appropriately through the city. And so we've taken steps to try and fix this moving forward, because we aren't trying to do anything malicious towards either the city, our neighborhood. Our neighbors enjoy our company, and we enjoy our neighbors' company when we're able to enjoy the property. We just wanted to be able to kind of ease the burden, I guess, on our family a little bit, but we want to make sure that we do it appropriately, which is why when we were notified that we were doing something inappropriately, then we wanted to take the action to to go ahead and fix that as soon as possible.
Unfortunately, with VRBO, you need to have it one more day than is allowable. They have it the 180. They needed the 181 for it not to be short-term rental.
A long-term rental in Daytona is 6 months and a day. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
And that's,
That's not our biggest issue.
but I have a question, sir. You received a violation, and I assume Mr. Contact information was available for Mr. Yates. I've been doing this now hearing these matters now for, it's going on probably 5 years almost, I believe.
A little while.
And majority, a great majority of people, except the people who sort of blow off city regulations, the first thing they do is they contact the city, because I believe there is a notation on the notice that there's potential for fine and all that. And you essentially engaged in what amounts to self-help, when all you really needed to do was to talk with Mr. Yates. And at this point, as Mr. Yates has stated, you are still a short-term rental, even if you cannot advertise a long-term rental on those online vehicles. And it just becomes, you may have good intent, but it could also be viewed as a subterfuge to try to escape the city's regulations. The city has if I understand, a comprehensive regulation of rental properties, whether they're long-term or short-term, because there are some places still in the city that do allow where short-term rentals are allowed. And that's for consideration of things like fire alarms and smoke detectors and safe access in and out. And it's amazing how many times I've heard over the years where people have windows, but they're nailed shut, doors that don't work. And therefore, you have chosen to step outside the regulatory framework of the city when it was only a phone call away, and you could have been dealing with this in a manner that brought you into you wouldn't be here today hearing what I'm having to say. You would have heard it from Mr. Yates at that time, and then you could have managed to make the appropriate decisions as how you want to proceed. But instead, you chose to come here, and I'm hearing what you have to say, but I haven't seen any movement towards bringing this property into compliance.
May I?
You may.
We did try to contact, not Mr. Yates, but we did try to contact Ms. Barnes. We called her and left a message. She was not in the office at the time. And then we decided, when we saw on the website that you could apply for the licenses online, that's what we did. We went ahead and filed the application online. So we did try to do something to remedy the situation. Maybe you're correct. Maybe we should have contacted Mr. Yates immediately. We thought we were just trying to contact the city rather than the inspector himself, to try to correct the situation.
Ms. Barnes, do they have a long-term
They've applied.
applied? Okay. I assume that when they apply for something, it then is, how is that process?
When did I get that application? A few days ago?
Yes, the application was sent in shortly. We tried contacting the city originally after the first notice that we received on 25th. They had mentioned that you were the coordinator for the rental, so which is why we tried to contact you.
Did you
after
leave
that.
a message?
I believe we did, yes. I believe my wife was the one that called. And when we weren't able to reach you, that's when we tried to get the things online, and we saw that the application process could be done online. So that's when I went ahead and went forward with it. I noticed when we did the application that an inspection would be required to final it, which I guess led in my mental position at that point to, again, me not contacting the inspector directly at that time, because I knew I would have to contact him to verify that everything was done properly and that the property would be allowed to be rented for long term. So you are, I probably should have given him a call first thing. I am a little bit more of an independent thinker, I guess, and I wanted to try and see if I could go through the process myself and then just call for verification of everything once the inspection had to happen, for us to be able to actually try and rent it long term.
Okay,
If I may speak to one other thing.
yes,
I
please
know
do.
something
This
that
is
you
your
had mentioned.
opportunity.
I know you had mentioned that something, one of the reasons why you get, the city tries to discourage short-term rentals in areas that aren't zoned for it is because of avoidance of taxes and things like that. Part of the reason we chose to stay on a platform such as VRBO or go that route is because they tell us that they are the ones that they take the taxes, everything out of what the booking is and pay it directly to the city, to the state, things like that, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't interfere with anything like that. If that's not the case, I am so sorry, and I did not know that, but that was the impression that we were under.
We've heard that a number of times, and unfortunately, they do cover, state, maybe even county, local,
Okay,
and so it really does,
okay.
at least to the extent it should. And of course, if it's been like a hotel or motel, which is what guests, then you also have bed.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, I'm going to look to you and ask you this question. The facts as stated would support the imposition of the higher fine. However, is it Gilbert?
David.
David.
Yeah.
Mr. David Ruiz Calderon has stated certain extenuating factors, such as their intent to have a long-term arrangement and the application for a permit for one. And I don't know whether that affects the city's recommendation relative to a fine or not.
Our recommendation remains unchanged.
Okay.
Then, if I can state, Mr. Rizzo, of course, the respondents, every respondent have a right to be heard. They believe they have mitigating factors, and you believe that those are sufficient mitigations. Those are choices that you as the magistrate get to make. Our position, just out of consistency, generally would remain the same. And if that's the position of staff, that's what we are.
I guess that, again, my feeling is if I receive a notice of violation, the first thing I do is contact the inspector for the city to find out what constitutes the violation and how do I resolve it. And instead of going around in a circle and trying to avoid contact with the city. And I understand your situation, but I also understand that I get I see this typically a month or so after things have transpired, time has passed, and I know that unless reviews have been posted, for all I know, the property could have been rented out. I don't think VRBO or Airbnb or any of those, the only thing they post are reviews.
Correct.
Were there reviews on this property?
9.
9.
But no new reviews after the posting.
Well, but that just, someone doesn't have to post a
Oh, absolutely. No, they do not. I just wanted to let you know.
When you say after the post, you mean after you identified the post?
Correct. After I identified and I'm sorry, when I posted the property,
Okay, the notice.
no new reviews happened after they were given notice. The last review was December 6, 2023.
Mr. Riggio, part of the reason I didn't contact Mr. Yates directly was because on the original notice that he sent to us, there were violation remedies listed on here, which was my course of action. So I understand where, a line of thinking would be contact the inspector directly to fix it, but if it's listed here, that's why I wanted to just take the opportunity to do it. I work in construction, so I understand inspectors of all types are very, very busy all the time. So I took it from the perspective of if he gave me a list of what I needed to do to fix it, then I want to go ahead and fix it. I don't want to waste time running, going in a circle with someone if I can just go ahead and fix what they're asking me to fix and then call them to verify.
And agreed, if it was fixed, that would be a different story, but it was not. It did not cease and desist. The ad remains up as of this morning, so that's why we're where we are.
Mr. Yates, on the notice, how does the notice relate to the violation in terms of the posting?
Exactly what it says. So that way you can see in your own words sort of what he's saying. But basically saying, because it tells him to cease and desist, that he felt that the blocking out of certain dates would suffice. But as I said, unfortunately, since the advertisement's still up, it really just doesn't meet that criteria of ceasing and desisting.
I guess I'm having a problem with a number of things. First of all, the rental agreement must be longer than 6 months, and it's being advertised on a site that only handles rentals of less than 6 months.
Correct.
And you must obtain a permit, and I understand a permit was applied for, but that was only a few days ago.
Yeah, and I didn't know they were here for short term. I knew I got an application.
And so I guess there is a downside to self-help in terms of trying to, you receive a note appear before you must, and it must cease and desist this action. And there was no cessation of the advertisement and holding out of a property for rent under city code. And Mr. Yates, is that correct? Is
Yes,
it
sir.
considered a violation itself?
Right. Just the having it up there advertising.
So, gentlemen, I hear your argument, but it's something where you're asking me to ignore the notice itself and what would be expected of you under those circumstances. So therefore, I'm really left in a position where I have no choice but to impose the fine requested by the city in the amount of $15,000. And I understand your situation, but this is one of the first times that I've heard somebody who chose to essentially ignore the violation notice and not get with the city, and there's consequences.
Sir, can you further explain why you feel we ignored the violation when we went through the violation remedies that are proposed on the actual notice? I understand where Mr. Yates is saying that the advertisement itself is a part of the violation, but on the remedies that are issued in this notice, it's not told to us that the advertisement is a part of the violation. So I understand that seems to be a large piece of what he feels is still holding us in non-compliance, which I understand. I understand, and the 180 plus 1, I understand. Okay, like that's something that's easy for us to go ahead and remedy and continue to fix. And I want to fix this. I don't want to be in non-compliance. I don't want to be creating issues for myself or for the city.
Your problem is that you are essentially trying to construe a document that has legal ramifications as if you're an attorney, and you're not, apparently. Okay? The advertisement itself, the holding out of the property on a short-term rental site is considered a violation. And that is kind of at the root of this problem. Whether or not the city doesn't have an ability to find out if the property has been rented, because unless people post reviews or they find people there, it could be rented out as for short-term rentals for a weekend, for a day. I don't know. And the simple solution was to simply contact the city and say, look, I want to get this resolved. And I understand you're certainly stating that you earnestly now want to resolve it, but I also don't know whether that is the fact that you're facing the possibility of a $15,000 fine and you've been renting it out for the last 30 days, or whether you meant it from the very beginning. These are simple matters, and they could be resolved very simply.
May I? We have not been renting it for the last 30 days, but may we ask for this to be for a continuance before you impose the fine, so we have an opportunity to speak to the city and see if we can resolve something? Would that be a possibility?
That would be up to the city if they want to do that.
Look to city staff.
I'm not sure what we're going to resolve at this point.
Like I said, at this point, the city, what we're proceeding consistent with the way we proceed with all these types of cases. With this type of information, we've been doing these for a number of years now, and this is our circumstance, trying to make some decisions based on what we have that we actually know and what we're being told. So the city maintains its position, and again, recognize the authority of the magistrate to make whatever decisions magistrate so elects.
Well, I don't see I have much choice in this matter. I need to try to treat people equally, and professions of, I wished I had done something different at this point in time are a bit late. And so I know that I'm not ready to open that door. Now, Mr. Jackson, you may want to explain to the respondents what a $15,000 fine or any fine is that's levied by a special magistrate in his proceedings.
Sure.
With respect to it being a lien on the property.
Yeah, pursuant to Chapter 162, these are general liens, which means that it's a lien against the property and against the violator, so that any other property they own would have this encumbrance, but it's an encumbrance. It goes against, if it's not paid, ultimately there'll be a filing of it within the public record, and it'll be an encumbrance on the property until it's resolved. So it's not emergency in the sense of if it didn't happen next week, something's going to happen. But at the same time, the law provides that after 90 days, it could be, the city could pursue foreclosure if we so elect. That's not a very common thing, but it's something that's within the law. So it's a encumbrance on the land, just like many debts, but this one goes across all property owned in our county. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Again, I've had many cases where respondents have immediately contacted the inspector and things were resolved simply. And even applying the reasoning that the respondents have in terms of applying for a long-term rental license, the application was only received a couple days ago. I don't see any immediacy and attempt to bring the violation to cessation that warrants my offering any reduction in the fine. So therefore, in case number 5, RTL 02-2421, I find the respondents David Roberto Ruiz Calderon and Stephanie Mary Ruiz Calderon to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A and Article 5, Section 5.2.A.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. And such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and a damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 476 Zelda Boulevard, and to have subsequently come, well, and not to have come into compliance as of the date of this hearing, and hereby order that, which is February 27, 2024, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $15,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
And if I can just say this, Mr. Magistrate, and this is for the benefit of the Rue Calderon.
Ruiz Calderon.
Okay. Oh, we have it in proper, okay.
No, I think you do on the agenda, I think it's proper.
Okay. Oh, the Ruiz, I'm sorry, I see why I got that wrong. Okay. Well, anyway, for the sake of these gentlemen, anyone else, I did want to mention that if this is a circumstance such as what we have today where it's still in noncompliance, the inspector technically, as a matter of law, could go out to, can bring this up in an hour or tomorrow and cite you again. Our inspector doesn't do that immediate, but if you need some assistance in ensuring that you have everything down, you probably want to follow up with the inspector, make sure that you're all even, and so he doesn't cite you in again for continual violation. It's per occurrence, so every time he spots it, he could cite you. And that's just for anyone that has that circumstance. That's all.
Okay.
Mr. Riggio, is there any potential for a future review fines based on actions and communication that I have with the inspector? Do we know if there's any precedent or cause for that?
Mr.
As a matter of law, we do have the means with the city's recommendations on how that occur, but we do have means for lien reviews. We have means for appeal if you so elect. Chapter 162.111 would give you that information. But yeah, there's remedies that you probably have to talk to your own counsel on that assistance if you need that. But yeah, there are in the law.
Okay.
Contact me afterwards, and we'll get started whenever.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, case number 6, RTL 02-2423, Sornelia Reyes, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.A, Article 5, Section 5.2.A.2 at 750 Marion Street.
Could you state your name, please?
You might want to bring these
You can
are
pull it down.
flexible.
There you go.
Danisa Reyes.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
If I can ask, are you Sornelia or are you someone else?
My sister. We own the house together.
Let me.
I live in the house.
Okay, you do live in the house, and
Yeah, I live
and you're okay you're representing on her behalf as well as your own.
Sure.
Okay, that's what we're lying at.
Okay. Um, Mr. Yates?
The case before you was a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned RDM6. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed February 1st, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of February 2nd, 2024. The daily posted rate was $90, and it displayed one review. The check-in, check-out time were 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay. Mr. Yates, is that what the city commonly asks for in this type of situation?
Yes, that's the
Someone responds
lowest
quickly?
fine that we ask for.
Okay. Ms. Reyes?
Oh, I don't know if you want to hear from me.
Oh,
as far-
yes.
Yes.
Please do.
Yeah, Ms. Reyes, as I said before, I'm Anthony Jackson, attorney for the city, and
Nice.
I have presented previously a position of the city as relates to irreparable, irreversible for the magistrate's findings for irreparable, irreversible in nature, which is something that's
I
in the
don't
statute.
know what is reversible, nothing about.
Did you hear me when I made that presentation? Were you here?
But I don't know what you mean with that.
So,
The words.
so did you need me to do it again, or that's not going to help?
I think that Ms. Reyes wants to first understand the concept of irreparable and irreversible.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just means that there's a status in the law under the statute, the Florida law, that allows for the magistrate to make a decision that certain circumstances, which are transient, meaning they happen real fast, they come and go, and he can make a determination that certain types of violations can't be repaired. You can't just fix them and then they don't count anymore, and they can't be reversed. You can't undo them. Once they happen, they happen. Like if you're making money on a property, once it happens, and you can't really undo that. And so I presented to the magistrate and to everyone else listening, the position of the city is these are that type of violation. They happen, and once they happen, it's gone. Someone comes, they pay money, they're gone, and we can't do anything about that. The respondent or the person who we're bringing before the magistrate may have earned money, may have been in a neighborhood that caused some challenges for the neighborhood or other things like that, and those things can't be reversed. Once they happen, they happen. So that's what that means. And so I presented what was presented earlier. So I would need to ask you if you need me to present that again, or if that's something you waive me presenting again because you heard it the first
understand
time. Okay. So you don't need me to go over that again? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well then I will incorporate Mr. Jackson's comments that he made in the previous case, number 5, RTL 02-2421, into this proceeding. And that means that what he stated before about irreparable and irreversible is now made a part of this proceeding, just his words. And you can, if you take exception to any of his words, you certainly can state why you feel that this type of violation is not irreparable or irreversible.
Well,
I think let me put it this way, just so you're clear. It's sort of like cutting a tree down. If you cut a tree down, you can't glue it back on. The tree is gone, and that's an irreparable. If you rent out a unit, and I believe that's what Mr. Jackson's argument has been, if you rent out a unit and you collect the money, the unit was rented out and you've got the money, you can't undo, you can't put things back together again. Sort of like, was it Humpty Dumpty? Once you fall off the wall and you can't put it back to what it was before. So
I only did it I didn't know I was wrong. I don't know I was breaking the law. I don't break the law. I didn't know. I only did it for 2 nights. And 2 days after. It is good.
okay.
Check everything. And sorry if I break the law. I don't know.
Okay, well, I just want to point out, you heard what transpired in the previous matter. You did the right thing. You immediately contacted the inspector and stopped the problem. And some people choose to go and not, and so you did the right thing. And if I understand correctly, Mr. Yates, the $1,000 is what is the lowest fine for somebody who immediately.
Yes, that's the lowest we request.
I tried to get the license. He told me about it. Call him. He said, I tried to get the license. Was denied because I make a mistake in the application. And he told me until I don't get here, I can apply for the license. Gotta do something. And apply for the license after. Anyway, that's the minimum fine that I should go. Like me and my sister, we put all the eggs in one basket. So everything is house. It's like, not much money left. Can hurt us a lot.
Well, I understand that, but it's also money. You rented out the property for 2 nights, or if I understand.
I think it was 180.
And that money, that was a rental that should have never occurred by city code. And this is the fine that has been levied now pretty much for about the last 4 years or so. And so I'm not prone to suddenly changing it, because then there's other people out there who are going to say that you've treated us differently for some reason. And so unless you have another argument, I am considering the $1,000 fine as the appropriate fine in this matter. And so, okay. Do you have anything further?
Okay, so I have how many days to pay it?
Ms. Barnes?
30 days.
And I pay in 30 days, I can make an arrangement or something?
Well,
Pay off?
I mean, then interest will get added. You can contact me and we can discuss it.
I think I talked to you one time. Now, a couple times.
Okay.
It's me, I'm just sorry. Gotta make-
Okay, well then, case number 6, RTL 02-2423, I find the respondent Sornilia Reyes to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and a damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 750 Marion Street, and hereby order a respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not, and for the property at 750 Marion Street, and to have come into compliance on February 2nd, 2024. And hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again. And that for any future repeat violation, a respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. The last part of it probably doesn't apply to you, but we have had repeat people come back who have violated the statute or the section of the code again, and they were on full notice that they were not supposed to.
You're not gonna see me again.
I hope. Well, thank you.
Never.
Thank you.
All right, case number 7, RTL 02-2424, Kenneth Metzler Jr., cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2, at 213 Jessamine Boulevard. Is anyone here on behalf of Kenneth Metzler. Is there any Kenneth Metzler appearing on Zoom? No? No.
The city would like to request a continuance to allow proper notice.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why he's not here. So,
That was the last posting I just put in your book.
okay. Okay. So you just got back the notice of, all right. All right, then, based upon the city's request for continuance, I hereby continue case number 7, RTL 022424, Kenneth Metzler Jr. for alleged violations of city code at 213 Jessamine Boulevard to March 26, 2024. All right. Case number 8, RTL 022426, Halifax Apartments LLC, cited for failure to correct violations of the Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 901 North Halifax Avenue. Is there anyone here on behalf of Halifax Apartments LLC?
Could you state your name, please?
Okay.
Elmer King.
There's also a gentleman standing up. Do you wish to speak on?
I didn't see that. I'm sorry. I thought I was here last.
Okay, and your name, sir?
My name is Sam Nashid.
Can you spell your last name, please?
N-A-S-H.
Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go this way. Mr. Misha, is that it? Misha? Am I pronouncing?
Nash. Yeah.
Nesh?
Yeah.
Nesh, okay. You said you're manager. Can you state
Yeah,
your,
I'm the property manager. I'm here behalf the owner because he have an emergency. Can't
okay. And Mr. King, what is your relationship to Halifax Apartments LLC?
I was the short term. I did the short term thing.
Okay. All right. Mr. Yates?
All right, the case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned MFR 20. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed February 6, 2024. They were not actively advertising by February 14, 2024. The daily posted rate was $69. The advertisement displayed 11 reviews. The check-in, check-out chime were shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay.
we already fixed
Sir?
the problem. Okay.
Mr. Jackson, do you want to? I tried to keep everything in order.
No problem.
So, I think y'all have been here since we've started. I'm Anthony Jackson, I'm the attorney for the city. I've presented to the magistrate previously the city's position as relates to irreparable, irreversible. That's something we do in every case, either by me presenting it again or asking if that's something you need me to present or if that's something you waive me presenting again. Obviously, having the right to address anything that I've previously said regarding the city's position on irreparable, irreversible in nature. Is that something you need me to repeat again? Okay, so you waive that. Okay, so I would ask the Mr. Riggio to just incorporate my prior statements.
Okay. Then I will incorporate into this proceeding Mr. Jackson's presentation regarding irreparable and irreversible, or actually the city's position on irreparable and irreversible as he presented earlier in case number 5, RTL 022421. And again, as Mr. Jackson stated, if there's something that you disagree with or feel is inappropriate, you certainly can make any objections you want to regarding that.
Already,
Okay.
we take it out.
All right. Mr. Yates, you've finished presenting?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Jackson, it's your turn now.
Go ahead. Or what?
Well, I mean, if you guys have a defense, if you guys feel that the fine's incorrect, just any of that.
No, we already, we don't know about the law, so we already take it out.
Yeah, I didn't check into the ordinance or whatever. So it's
Okay.
I'm fine with the fine if that's what it is. We're good.
Okay. Well, then the fine would be $1,000 as in the previous matter for folks who immediately remedy the problem. And that's what the city's been doing for about the last 4 years or so. So, I understand that it may be in some code situations it may seem a little bit more, but there's also a fair amount of money being transferred in these rentals, and that reflects that. If the city is, I think, expressed concerns that if the fine is too low, people just rent and pay the fine. And
Am I able to pay the fine when I'm here, or does that have to be online?
Ms. Barnes would make contact, right? Am I correct?
Fine, so we don't pass the case. We already clear up everything. When we have the note, we comply, and we done. We don't have to be fined. We don't exceed the note will start February 6th. And
Correct.
We already, today is February 28th. Before 30 days, we done. We
The violation occurred and was rented in violation of city code, and the fine is for that violation.
There is a grace time usually when you get the violation, and to not comply, that's something, and you comply, that's something else. I think so.
That's why this one's irreparable and irreversible. That's what we mean by that there is no compliance time. The minute it happens, it generates a fine, essentially.
That's pretty much common throughout all code violation proceedings, if I understand correctly.
Well,
If your grass is too high, when you get the citation, then you're in violation on the day that the grass was too high.
Well, if it's not a repeat violation or irreparable or irreversible nature, then we would give them a reasonable time to comply. However, that reasonable time is very common for someone who may be aware of especially building code violations. It's very common to give them about a 30-day opportunity to comply. The nature of these violations are irreparable and irreversible in nature, which means once they happen, as was announced by the magistrate, they've already occurred, and the effects have already occurred. And so the position of the city is that we ask for a fine of $1,000 as a minimum fine for it having to occur at all.
The fine if we don't comply, but comply is something.
Well, you were not in compliance, and that's what generated the notice of violation. And that is the process that has been, the way this matter has been handled for 4 years. This has been to circuit court a number of times.
Yes.
And so I don't see any reason to change the process. It's certainly your prerogative to make any challenges you want, but at the same time, this is to be distinguished because it is an irreparable and irreversible type of violation. Okay. Therefore, in case number 8, RTL 0224, do we have anything further to say? I understand your argument, but I'm not agreeing with it. And so,
It's not argument. It's just
so in case number 8, RTL 022426, Halifax, I find the respondent, Halifax Apartments LLC, to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1A, and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damages to the surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D, Florida statutes for the property at 901 North Halifax Avenue, subsequently come into compliance on February 14th, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riggio, can we take that 10:30 break?
Well, what I would like to do is if we could go on to number 11 and then come back, since these are the last three, and then come back to the
Case 9 and 10.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine, Denver. Yeah, I'll it's okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. You just.
Can I email you back?
He has to sign the order, and then I'll be sending it out. You can contact Kevin.
I think we still need this time, so if we could take.
Excuse me?
I said, I think we still need them.
Okay.
I think I want to be okay with that. Okay, well, yeah, we'll go, if we can.
All right.
I changed my position. If we can break down, we appreciate it.
Okay, we are going to take a 5-10 minute break. It is 10:25, and this proceeding is hereby in recess until about 10:35 or a little bit sooner if everybody is back. Sellers. I believe that's the
You guys can come on up.
people back there.
You guys can come on up.
Are we ready to proceed forward? Okay. This process is reconvened at 10:35, or this proceeding is reconvened at 10:35, and we are going to skip to the last case, case number 11, RTL 012414, John Andrew Singlesether and Pathu Singlesether Life Estate, who are cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2, at 328 Manhattan Avenue.
Could you state your names, please?
John Singlesether.
Two single Sata.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Yates, can you, this matter was previously before us last month. If you can bring us up to date and tell us what has transpired in the interim?
Yes, within 24 hours of the hearing, the site was permanently taken down and all of evidence of it online removed. Considering that and considering the sincerest efforts of respondents to come into compliance, but merely running into technical issues, the city is willing to revise their request to a one-time $1,000 fine.
Okay. All right. Mr. Yates, if I understand from the minutes of the last matter that you observed the violation on December 6, 2023,
Yes,
and notified them the same day.
yes.
Okay. Now, the posting for that one was still up on January 23, 2024, at the day of the hearing.
Correct, and they took it down that evening, I believe.
Okay. In between that time period of December 6th and that, had they contacted you or in any way, or?
No, they had not contacted me.
The minutes state that Mr. Singlesether stated his wife put it on snooze. Do you have? I'm trying to understand this case in terms of.
They told me they didn't believe it was on snooze. They believe they had closed it out, but it turned out was on snooze, was my understanding.
Okay. So they took efforts to take it down immediately?
Yes, and they believed that it was removed, not that it was just on snooze.
Okay. How did you pull it up? I mean, I'm trying to understand. I don't understand the intricacies of all these websites, and I don't disagree that it was on snooze and that they thought it was down. But
Right.
What is the difference between? Why did you think it was still active if they thought it was on snooze?
Because I use basically when I look at the website, I save the link and I just click on it and go to it. And if it loads, then it's still live to me.
Okay.
What they would probably see is, I believe it's something along the lines of, do you want to close down your account for now? And there's something that basically says, for now, or do you want to permanently delete your account? And That's where the confusion came in. And the permanent delete is going to be further down and off to the side, not the most obvious choice because they would prefer you keep your account. That is their preference.
Okay, so if I am John Q. Public and I'm looking for a house in Daytona Beach or a short-term rental, and I put down Daytona Beach, I believe that it shows a bunch of properties that are available. Would that property have come up
It would have, yes.
to, even after they put it on snooze?
Correct. It'll come up on you. It just won't allow you to put in dates to book the property.
So if I am a potential customer, I'm sitting there frustrated, trying to get dates in, so I move on to another
That's a possibility, yes.
property?
Yes.
But I find that that particular property is not active, so to
Right.
speak.
So the
I
deal
can't interact.
you could message the host directly with the dates you'd like to book, and you can send them a message, and technically the host could just go, yes, and then book you those dates.
Okay,
As opposed to when the booking's active, you can insert your credit card, put your payment through, and the host just has to click accept.
okay. So there's a lot of extra stuff that a potential customer or renter has to go through.
Correct, when it's deactivated like that.
Okay. All right.
Honor, may I say something?
Sure. This is your opportunity. If you want to move the microphone down a little lower, that's flexible.
May I say something?
Sure.
That verbal website is so complicated. So I block all the booking in future days, so nobody really can see that. And I believe that I don't really want anybody to rent it because we are losing money on that place, and we want to sell it as soon as we can.
Okay. So effectively, you rendered it so that nobody could, even though they could
Right.
pull it up on the website, they could not book anything.
No, they cannot. I don't think they can, if they put in the date, they cannot see the listing at all because it's not in the range for them one. And they have its own future date book this year and next year.
What she's saying is if you were to put in a specific date range, for instance, if you said you wanted to look for next week, it would never show up then, only when you look wide open.
Okay. I know, I would suspect most people would put in a date range because they usually know when they want to go somewhere, and they don't want to find out that there's a wonderful place that's available, but for a date that is outside their vacation plans or whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. And so what is the city's recommendation in this matter?
Considering all their efforts, we're willing to reconsider to $1,000.
Okay.
Your Honor, we never really want to do anything against the rule. And we are really afraid that we did something wrong. And my husband had a high blood pressure that the doctor had to updose for him. And it's been 2 months, and we were really, could not sleep. I woke up 3 o'clock this morning.
Okay. I understand, but I'm also in the position of trying to treat everybody in the same way. Now, Mr. Jackson, you may want to speak to this. If they are trying to divest themselves of this property, this would just be a lien that would be on the property that would be paid out of the closing proceeds. I'm trying to.
Advice, but I mean, that would be a general statement of truth. Yeah, I would assume that would be what would happen, but I can't advise that, of course.
I mean, I sense what they're saying is that you may not have the funds readily available, but if the property is to sell, then it comes out of the sale price of the property, and it's not money that's immediately out of your pocket.
What I can say, and I think it's what I said before, which is that if it's not paid, it would be filed in the record against the property, and so it'll be an encumbrance on a property that generally would be paid at a sale or a transaction.
Okay, we don't think that's a problem. We'll make arrangements to pay the fine.
Can we pay $500?
Okay.
You can contact Ms. Barnes to arrange payments. Details.
All right. And therefore, in case number 11 RTL 01-2414, I find the respondents John Andrew Singlesether and Ha Thu Singlesether Life Estate to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 328 Manhattan Avenue, and to have subsequently come into compliance. Mr. Yates, can you give me a date?
January 24th, 2024.
January 24th, 2024, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again. For any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, thank you, Mr. Yates. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, once he signs the order, I will send it to you. If you need to reach me, you can call me. I'm with the city. You're welcome.
Okay. We now have two cases that seem to be fairly closely related. And we will start with case number 9, RTL 01-2405, CBPR Inc., cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.A, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 534 North Peninsula Drive.
Mr. Snell, would you state your name for the record, please?
Good morning, Attorney Walter Snell for CBPR Inc. The corporate representative, Cindy Lee Niles, is present as well.
And is Ms. Niles going to testify?
I believe this case has been recommended to be dismissed, so
It will
therefore
be,
I
yeah.
don't think testimony will be necessary in this case.
The city would like to request that the case be dismissed.
Okay. And
While
can I have a
yeah,
just a brief
absolutely.
reason?
The wording on her tax licensing was rather confusing. While the short-term rental isn't allowed, we could see how she could have believed it was. So we want to dismiss that out of an abundance of caution.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, is that
Yeah, that's sufficient.
all right? I see no reason.
Explore whether or not it can continue. They believe not, but we're going to explore whether it can based on potential grandfathered situation, but that's for another day, sir, so.
Okay. Everyone's in agreement, and I'm not going to stand in the way. So therefore, case number 9, RTL 01-2405, respondent being CBPR Inc. for property at 534 North Peninsula Drive is hereby dismissed.
Thank you so much, Ronnie.
All right, we'll move on to the second case then. Case number 10, RTL 01-2404, Cindy Lee Niles, cited for failure to correct violation of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.A, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 1045 Chaffee Place. And
Good afternoon, or excuse me, good morning, Attorney Walter Snell for Cindy Lee Niles, who will be testifying potentially, and her daughter Burgundy Niles Steele, who may also be offering testimony.
okay, they will need to be sworn.
Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I may kind of give you the background, of course, you probably recall, but if I may offer why we're here and what we're intending to offer this morning.
Please do.
At the last hearing, Mrs. Niles testified. We are offering her testimony in mitigation. This is a second violation. She testified that she was out of the country prior to the October 20th date of violation. And I think she testified that she returned around the 24th or 25th. She further offered, and we offered, kind of proffered what the testimony would be of her daughter, who's the one that opened up the Airbnb listing for a specific purpose, which was to accommodate a transaction. And we offered that the daughter does assist other people who are within their rights to offer Airbnb short-term rental, and that she also can utilize Airbnb for long-term rentals. And that through the other listings, a gentleman contacted her about potential long-term listings. Her mother was seeking another long-term roommate, which she's had in the past. She offered before that it gives her some comfort to have another individual in the home as she lives by herself. And her daughter, through that platform, met somebody who was interested. Airbnb apparently screens them and found that he would be a suitable roommate. Opened up that portal to allow the first month's rent to be paid through the Airbnb portal, both being familiar with it. And then it was closed. So the court, felt like my proffering of that and all this was hearsay. So the daughter is here today to offer that clarification and verification of what we proffered before.
Well, Mr. Snell, actually, your testimony was nice, but I don't think it's admissible in any proceeding.
Yeah, it was
so.
certainly hearsay, and
so I think I had also asked too that if the daughter could, her daughter could testify.
we're here today for that purpose, sir.
One thing I would like to ask Mr. Yates, so before we do that, has the city given, what is the city's request to me, because that usually starts these cases, and I don't know if there's been any change in the month that has transpired since then.
Due to it being a second occurrence of the same thing, the city is requesting a $15,000 fine.
Okay.
We did reach out in between and to see if there could be some resolution short of that, and we were not, so that's why we're here today, sir.
Okay.
You want me to offer the testimony this time?
Please do.
All right. Come on up. All right, state your name for the record, please.
Burgundy Niles Steele.
What is your relation to Cindy Lee Niles?
I am Cindy's daughter.
What is your occupation?
I'm an elder law attorney. I specialize in veterans benefits appeals.
All right. You live in Erie?
Yeah.
Excuse me, could you repeat? You said you were what?
I'm sorry. I'm an attorney. I specialize in veterans benefits appeals. I practice with low income. It's an elder law practice.
Okay.
And do you reside in Daytona Beach?
Yes, I do.
How long have you been a resident here?
I moved away for a few years, but I was born here, Halifax Hospital, and since 2017, I moved back.
Okay. In 2023, were you aware that your mother went on a trip overseas?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember roughly the dates?
I should have talked to her about that. I don't remember exactly, but I know she was out of town for a couple of months. October 7th. I'm sorry. Yes, she was there.
In the interim, do you go to her home for any reason? When she's away?
Not generally.
Okay. Do you retrieve her mail?
No.
Okay. All right. So, are you familiar with the Airbnb platform?
Yes, of course. Yes.
And is it used solely for short-term rentals?
I only use it for longer-term rentals.
Okay. Is it a platform? Most people associate it
Mr.
with...
Snell?
Yes, sir.
It looks like we may have a microphone issue.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
I hate to interrupt you.
All right.
You're on. He'll just adjust volume if necessary.
Do you want to need to speak in this and her to that? Is that the...
I think that's the thought
That's
of.
what he wants, so that you're on separate microphones.
Yeah, Dave, if you can give us a, no, I think
It's
you
on
had
now,
it off. You
yeah.
may have turned it off.
Okay.
Is it still?
You want me to leave it on? It's on now.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Okay. So I believe you said you're familiar with the Airbnb platform, which seems to be most commonly associated in this form with the short-term rentals. It's creating a lot of problems for people. Can it be used for long-term rentals?
Yes.
What other platforms can people utilize for long-term rentals? I know Zillow is popular.
Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist.
Is Airbnb branched out beyond short-term rentals to your knowledge and are now allowing people to advertise for long-term rentals?
In my experience, yes.
Okay. And you assist people in both?
Yes, I do. We do have, I help people with condos on A1A that are allowed short-term rentals. I never do anything personally under 30 days, but those condos are allowed to do
So they're within a special zoning for the
Right,
short-term rentals,
right.
and Airbnb is a platform you help them with?
Right.
Okay. And you also utilize it for yourself or other people for long-term rentals?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe at some point, your mother's home was not listed on Airbnb in October?
Right. She's had other roommates through other platforms, other like referrals that I've gotten from people, but it was not listed.
Does your mother ever go on her own and deal with Airbnb?
No, no.
Okay. So in October,
I
was
should
there,
qualify that, I'm sorry. After a violation a couple years ago, it has not been on since October. So she was, unfortunately, before, but she had stuff.
so you're familiar with the prior violation?
Yes, yes. I
Were
am.
you the one who was kind of helping her at that time?
Right.
Believing it was?
Unfortunately,
okay.
yes.
And what was your mother's reaction to that as she expressed it to you?
A couple of years ago? Oh, she was very upset, yes.
All right. So was there an opportunity in October that through your other listings that somebody contacted you about the potential for a long-term listing in the area?
Yes, I had someone interested in a year, 6 months to a year, but he was hoping for a year rental.
Okay. And through that platform, did you indicate that it's potential your mother's would be seeking a roommate, maybe he or she would be a
Right.
good fit?
Right, he was from the area, and his dad lives close by, so I thought it would be a safe fit.
Is there some way that people are screened in a sense, before you just have somebody come to your mother's home, either through Airbnb or through some communication you had with this individual?
So for me, if it's not on Airbnb, I use things like Turbo Tenant, things like that are just a normal background check, but Airbnb does all the verifications and background check, criminal history check, so it's not necessary if it goes through them.
So at the time you had this communication, your mother's home was nowhere on Airbnb for any purpose
Not
whatsoever?
before I spoke with him, no.
And through the communication, you offered him the potential of your mother's because you appeared to be a good fit as a roommate?
Right.
Okay. And through those communications, was there essentially an agreement that he would take the unit and now would need to pay some deposit?
Right, he would pay through Airbnb for the initial month or two, and then he would just have a long-term lease, which we did have him sign a lease when he moved in.
Okay, we presented that before. So at some point, did you then go into Airbnb and open up this listing? And did you do that?
Yes, I did open it so that he could see the pictures and the information and then pay through the portal if he thought it was a good fit for him and he was going to agree to a year lease, which unfortunately I did mess that up.
Do you remember what date you would have opened it for the purpose of that transaction?
I don't know exactly what day, but I know that he confirmed on October 13th. So it would have been October 13th, maybe the 12th. We weren't talking very long before he confirmed.
So is your testimony you opened it because you kind of consummated a deal and this was the
Yes.
forum, the platform to pay at least the first month's rent?
Yes, and I did close it once he got the
I'll
confirmation.
get to that. So do you remember what day through your Airbnb records that he did pay that first month's rent?
October 13th is what I have as the confirmation.
And during all this time, are you communicating with your mother or anything about this while she's overseas?
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
So at some point, do you then close the listing because you've accomplished what you're trying to?
Yes.
And when was that?
I have October 20th that I closed the listing. I know there's something different up there.
All right, so in the previous hearing, your mother indicated that, of course, she came home around the 25th and finds in the mail the notice of violation. Did you have any idea when you closed this that in fact the city had made given her notice of a violation?
I don't believe so, no.
I mean, would you have picked up her mail and
No,
saw this and
no.
opened it and realized and then therefore went and closed this?
No.
Okay, so is it just coincidental, the dates?
I mean, I did close it because I had this person who had already paid, so it wouldn't have been available for anybody else. And that was the reason why I closed it.
Okay, so within a week of getting the deposit, you closed it?
And I should have done it before, but I think that there was just a lapse. I'm looking at my calendar before we came in here, sir, and it was a Friday, so usually I check all my emails on the weekend. That's probably why I did it on Friday. I really can't have a bad memory. So.
So their notes indicate that the advertising stopped 10/24. Do you have any reason to dispute that, or your records indicate
I mean, I have a
anything to the contrary?
printout of when I enlisted it, and it says October 20th. So I'm not sure where the 10/24 date is, but I do have that email printed out. It says 10/20.
But at your testimony, you had no idea that their mother was in any hot water because of the fact that it was open for this purpose.
No, I didn't know.
You just was the normal course of what you
Right.
intended to do.
Right, and yes, I am feeling very guilty because I know she had this previous
So
situation.
when your mother comes home, does she relay to you that she got something in the mail?
Yes, and when she told me that she got something in the mail, I actually thought it was no problem because I was like, oh, well, I found somebody who wanted a year, and I was only advertising it for, 6 months. I didn't know that this would be a problem.
So how did she explain to you that, oh my God, I got this notice? What was her demeanor?
Well, she was pretty upset.
Okay,
Yes.
and you had to go explain to her
Yes.
everything?
Well, I thought everything was okay, so I did explain that to her, but obviously it's not okay. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And Walter, may I say something?
Just wait,
Okay.
just
Oh,
wait.
sorry.
And of course, you're aware that her home is not allowed to be offered for the short-term rentals.
Right, that's what I thought. If it was under 6 months or 6 months or under, then it wasn't allowed. I didn't realize that if it was on Airbnb. I thought if it was 181 days or more, then that would be okay. Or if we got a year lease, then that would be okay.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Just to,
Jackson, do you have anything that you want to ask?
Yes, and if it's okay, no one minds me sitting down here, is that okay?
Sure.
No, I'm sorry, I did not get your name.
A burgundy steel. Steel.
Burgundy Niles
Yes.
Steel.
The steel part, right?
Yes. that's-
Okay,
yeah.
steel. Okay, I can get that part.
Burgundy.
Ms. Burgundy?
That's
Oh,
fine.
it's
Burgundy.
Burgundy Steel.
Yes, Burgundy is my
Ni-
first name.
yeah.
First name's Burgundy.
Burgundy, yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll go with Miss Steele if that's okay.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Whatever you feel comfortable.
All right. And you're an elder law attorney,
Yes, sir.
and you're familiar with the short-term rental format?
Just in terms of our experience with it, right? And then a couple of years ago, getting in trouble. And I have traveled, sorry. So I have experience for the last decade with Airbnb. I lived in District of Columbia. So it's always been to me a monthly.
I'm gonna ask you to stay closer to the mic.
Oh, I'm
just
so sorry.
I think
so
he's picking me up.
traveling myself, studying abroad, staying places for months at a time. That's how I've been familiar with it. I do know that people also vacation, and there's a lot of that here. And I've done that myself too, like in other countries and things.
Well, I asked you that because it's been said that you aid other people.
Yes.
What does
yeah.
that mean?
So sometimes people aren't really great with computers, so I'll just help them get set up with their listings. So my grandmother has a condo over on the beach, not on the beach, it's across the street from the beach at Vantage Point. So there's a few condos there that I've helped a couple people set up listings for, just some family friends and neighbors, things like that, that when we were living in District of Columbia, yeah. And
And you do that as part of your practice or not?
no, it's a hobby. I guess you would call it a side gig.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the only reason I ask that because we often have elderly people who really don't understand the process.
Right.
So is that kind of
Yes, that's how I got started when I was living in the District of Columbia. We only lived there for a few years, but I did have an elderly neighbor, actually, I guess since you bring it up that way, that wanted to find a housemate. And so I helped her find students, and we had a lot of, in my practice, so we would have interns and things like that coming for, a semester. So she would get a lot of those type of roommates.
What's their thought on what it means when we say a short-term rental format?
I understand that you mean the Airbnb as a website. Is
Yeah, as
yes.
websites.
It's my
being-
understanding that Zillow can also be 30 days, that all of the platforms can be 30 days. So I do understand the Airbnb is mainly used as a short-term rental for nightly and things like that on A1A. But I do know in my experience that I have several people that have stayed, 11 months, 9 months, 7 months, a year
Okay,
on
you-
Airbnb.
Okay, and you're aware that your mother in the past had a
Yes.
violation for
Yes.
utilizing short-term rental format?
Yes, sir, which is why I do feel really guilty because she hasn't used Airbnb since then because she was so, upset about it with me. Obviously, I made that mistake. So I didn't realize that it was just using Airbnb as a platform. I thought when I found this person that wanted a year lease that it didn't really matter that I found him through Airbnb as long as he signed a year lease. My mistake. I don't know what.
So you understand holding out,
Yeah.
when we say advertising or holding out, that something is being held out as being
It is.
short-term?
Well, I wouldn't be able to rent it to somebody for a short term under 6 months. So all of the listings that I have, and like I was telling Mr. Yates, I do have places in Holly Hill that are my personal places, and I've never had anybody under 6 months.
Okay, but you would agree that the site itself states days to vote, to rent,
Mm-hmm.
times to check in, times to check out, daily rates?
There's just a lot of transiency in the last few years. People are working remote. So it's just been a platform that, in my experience, has been more like monthly, 3 months, 6 months. You know, in Daytona Beach, of course, it's 6 months or longer, but that's how I've utilized it and seen it. But I do understand that, yes, there is a nightly rate.
And that's the way it's presented
Right.
on the website.
I think it's just transitioned to more of the long-term stay for some people that want to utilize it that way. And it's a free site to create. You put your pictures up there, your information. It's just a very easy way to show people your space.
When the specific post.
You're not there.
Okay, sorry, my fault.
Okay. Um, and you don't quite recall when it started or when it stopped, your particular advertisement?
The advertisement for the unit under discussion, which is not allowed to be rented under 6 months, I opened it October 13th, within a day or two of October 13th. That was when I was talking to this individual. He said he wanted a year lease. I let him confirm, and then I closed it a week later. And I don't know why I waited a week, because it wouldn't have been available for anybody else. I think it was blocked off for, the whole time. But it would have been a public. So if somebody put in that URL, they would have been able to see it. They just would not have been able to book it for a year. Maybe, a few months.
And while you're versed on utilizing these sites, you're not an expert on the site.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert, no.
I don't have any other questions. Oh, Ms. Steele. I don't know if you.
Okay, I have some questions. One is, I just want to, I want to get the time frames correct. And I want to also get, there is a lease, Mr. Snell, did you introduce a lease last?
We offered it last time. I don't know if we kept a copy, tendered again. Certainly, the other parties had a copy. I think you were reading it last time, but.
Yeah, if I could just look at it, I'm not, you entered one as I recall, and I don't know where it is. Okay. I note the lease is signed November 1st by both the tenant and the landlord. Okay. And I'm trying to, and it begins on November 1st. Now, there was a payment that I understand was made through the Airbnb portal. How does that relate to the term of this lease?
So basically the same price was through Airbnb, so he just paid the first month through that platform, and it was deposited, just a direct deposit.
Okay, and when did the tenant occupy the premises?
November 1st.
November 1st.
If
So-
confirmation, sorry, sir.
So I'm just trying to understand here the timing. There was the property had, and first of all, I know there's a predisposition to jump to the fact that anything Airbnb is verboten. But Airbnb can be used in those districts in the city where short-term rentals are allowed.
Right.
And so I think the question is, and I'll ask Mr. Yates later on this, but so the tenant sent the payment through Airbnb.
Right.
With respect to his essentially occupying the property as of November 1st.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then according to the term of the lease, the lease is from November 1 ending, November 1, 2023 to November 1, 2024 is for a year, so it's a long-term lease. Okay, I'm just trying to understand all of the dates and things of that nature. And you also stated, if I recall, that there was some type of almost like vetting of the tenant that occurred through Airbnb.
Yes, Airbnb collects your identification. They also do a background check. I have had people in the past that aren't able to even register an account. So they might meet me from someone else. They want to pay through Airbnb and they don't qualify for an account because of some background history check.
Okay. And would it be important to you that they're able to pay the rent?
That would be important. It's also important that they don't have a criminal history when it comes to living with my mother. Yes.
Okay. And so Airbnb also checks criminal history?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Snell?
That's an extra copy for the record, sir. If I may
Mr. Jackson, did you want to look at this at all?
If I may follow up with one or two questions.
Okay.
After he paid the first month's rent, what was he understanding as to future rent?
That he would pay with a check or with his personal bank account.
Through Airbnb or directly to your mom?
Directly to my mom.
Okay. And you aware that he did that? I mean, as far as you know, that's what he did?
I believe so.
Okay. It was never intended to be Airbnb payments in the future, correct?
Not for the full year, no.
Okay.
I have one additional question, if you don't mind. Is the tenant still in the property?
Unfortunately, sir, in January, we asked him to come with us, and I think he got a little bit spooked, so he left a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, because they were both, the tenant and her were originally who requested to be here, but.
Yeah, you thought it'd be helpful to hear from the tenant, and
Okay.
I think he didn't.
So he had been there for the month of November,
He was there for over 3
December?
months.
Excuse me?
He was there for over 3 months total.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And when he received, was it a subpoena or just a notice?
From me.
Oh, okay.
Request, because, you had indicated.
Oh, you all wanted him to come and testify on your behalf?
You had indicated it'd be helpful to hear from both parties to kind of confirm everything I proffered.
Okay.
And when they asked him, I don't think he was interested in it.
I drew up a letter and said, please, can you come to court with me? I would appreciate it very much for you to state
Okay.
everything I'm saying in your testimony.
All right.
So he broke a lease. Legal repercussions to be pursued later.
Mr. Jackson, if when you finish with that, I would, and I'll ask this question, does the lease contain any penalty if he breaks the lease?
Well, sir, obviously, it's a contract and penalty, and remedies can be pursued. I mean,
Okay.
you certainly have a right to seek future rents when somebody breaks a lease. I mean, that's why you want a lease, and it's up to the landlord to determine whether they're going to pursue remedies, but she
Okay.
intended and wanted a long-term tenant, and unfortunately, this circumstances.
I would agree. It does show a security deposit was obtained. Or
Was there a security deposit?
I think it looked like minimum maybe here.
$300.
Yeah, minimum.
How much?
300.
Okay. And was that forfeited?
It typically would be when you break a lease under the landlord-tenant statutes.
I freaked the guy out to that. I honestly, probably.
But typically it would be, usually the statutes say upon completion and the lease,
Okay.
there's procedures to follow to return it, but.
Can I have some follow-up question as
Yes,
well?
please.
Having reviewed the agreement, Ms. Steele, you practice here in the state of Florida? Okay, and how long have you practiced in the state of Florida? Okay,
I've also practiced. I haven't, but I've practiced,
okay.
but I'm licensed.
I'm looking at the lease payment. There is a provision for lease payment, and none of it says anything about methods of through special websites or anything else.
So number one on the back, the second, rules outlined by a third party messaging will dominate this. That's just that there was another.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Or payment by third party is also included at both.
Where's that?
On the first page, payment miles, or payment by a third party. Not third party, cover that person, which is gone through.
So our presumption is that that means payment through this alternative.
Right.
Um,
And that would be if somebody pays co-tenant or something like that as well, but
Does that cost any money?
It costs for the tenant, so they do pay, and then it does, but getting the customer service and the verification, background check, and that would cost money at a regular anyway. Costs like $75.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I believe that Turbo Tenant, which is what I normally use for if I'm not using Airbnb, it's like $75 for a background check and a financial history check, things like that.
Yeah, and what does it cost when you do it, giving up the 3% and those things?
It probably would have
and
been
this-
about the same, $50 to $75. I'm not sure. Calculating, sorry.
I don't have any other questions related to
Can I see the lease again, please? Thank you. Okay. Do you have any further questions, Mr. Jackson?
No more, Ms. Steele. I guess I'd like to hear from, whenever we're ready, from Mr. Yates in response, but we'll go whichever way.
Just a final question, I think then you're free to go. I know your daughter's out here. Just a final question. So to clarify, this listing was open for that purpose, not advertised for any other reason,
Yes, that's right.
and it was around the 13th of October.
Right.
And once you received the payment, which you confirmed your record shows around the 13th, you normally would have just closed it immediately.
Yeah, just a clarification on that. The confirmation that he paid would have been around the 13th, but we don't actually get a payment until November 1st from Airbnb. So they pay on the 1st of every month, or yeah, monthly.
And it was just your normal course of your activity that you closed it on the 20th, although it's very coincidental to when they.
Right, I believe so, yes.
You had no idea that your mom was even given any type of notice.
No.
Until she returned it.
No, I wish I could remember why I waited so long. I should have done it right away, but yes. And I do have that printout that it was closed on the 20th. I don't know.
And so your belief is you closed on the 20th, and even though the record may show the 24th, you don't know why there's potential.
I'm not
lapse.
sure.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I had. And I would just have a follow-up question for Ms. Niles. And we had
Please
concluded
go
our-
forward.
You said go forward, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
come on.
please, go forward.
Just, we've kind of covered it before, and I won't be labored, but clearly while you're on vacation, you had no idea what's going on with your,
Absolutely none.
But-
No idea whatsoever.
but your daughter knew you were looking for a new roommate.
Yes.
Okay. When you come home and you find a letter from the city, do you go to your daughter and say, oh my God, look at this?
Actually, what happened was I came home and my mail was stacked up high from work and home, and I'm a teacher. There was all kinds of papers there that were, well, I had to go pick it up at the post office. It was a certified letter. My daughter would not have known that that letter was at my home at all.
So you do go pick it up,
Yes, I go to
find
the
out
mail
what it's about.
and call her, and I'm like very upset because I was told by court, the magistrate, 2 years ago not to do it, and I have not done it.
And then she explains to you all this you've heard today.
She did.
And probably
Ev-
remorsefully, I presume.
Oh, she feels really bad.
All right.
It's okay, I'm gonna make her pay. No, I'm kidding.
Nothing further, sir.
Mr. Jackson?
If I could hear some response from Mr. Yates, I know he had some things he wanted to say.
Okay.
It may be an unfortunate circumstance, but both the parties, both Ms. Niles and her daughter, were part of the last case when they were told not to do this again. They opened up a site. It shows a 75 minimum night stay. This is the second occurrence, so unfortunately, the city really can't move from its position.
Okay. If I understand from testimony that I heard earlier today, you cannot open up you can't do over 180 days on Airbnb?
Not to my knowledge, and this one was specifically listed as a minimum 75 night. stay, so it wasn't even the longest that you could have put it for. Not that that matters.
But you couldn't go for 6 months and a day.
I have not seen that ability. But
So
specifically,
any number on that listing would be less than a long-term lease.
yes, any on there is.
So I mean, if I opened up an Airbnb site and I'm not, based on the argument that's been presented, and I need to put a number in there for a date.
Well, she's
it's
saying she
always going to be
could have
less
put that number in there, but
than a
didn't.
day.
That's what their testimony is, that they could have put that number in, but they did not.
Actually, I don't think she was really paying attention to it, really, because the whole purpose of opening it was for this limited purpose, and no way advertising, whether it be short-term or long-term. And the way I, see these cases fall, like an argument, I guess, it's almost like a strict liability. I mean, they say as soon as you're on Airbnb with anything whatsoever, it's the death knell for all these stuff. And it appears that it could be used for long-term. In this case, again, we've offered before in a mitigation. It wasn't her trying to thwart the rules after the first time. I mean, she's been very clear. First time was a pretty serious penalty in her eyes, and the second time was, oh my God, what's happened here? And then she finally realizes how it all occurred. So.
And I agree, and I think, at least with this point, that we've already I think they've pretty much been stipulating to the fact that, okay, this would come out as a short-term rental in its appearance, and they're up here asking for mitigation, that they don't think that they should be harmed with a $15,000 fine. Our position is that it's a second time. We understand the things that they're explaining. We have, and of course, their proof is the people they brought forth. Our position, however, is that these are people who knew or should have known the consequences as they went forward. I'd ask Xavier if he can bring up the ad again, and so that we can take a look at it. But I don't think it takes much for us to remind ourselves that no matter what we're being told it's being utilized for, it's being held out to anyone who would believe that they can, that it's a short-term rental ad. It's been held out for a daily fee. Just go and keep that going so I can just see it. So I don't want to make up anything. I want to see what's there. But it's being held out as a as something that would be available to rent on a short-term basis as a or as a guest rental on a site that provides, hold right there, let's blow that up a little bit. I would like to see the bottom corner there with the rates and so forth. It has a nightly rate. We're showing one guest, and obviously the history of reviews. We're showing again history of reviews, and so with that being said, we're kind of left to look at this as someone who knew and repeated. It's walking a thin line to even try and go on these sites and suggest that it should be utilized for a longer period of time or a shorter period of time. It doesn't really provide for that in a way that would speak to anyone, someone who was utilizing or wanted to utilize that service, who wanted to go to that place as a rental. It's being held out that this is what's available to you. As long as they're holding themselves out that way, it's hard for us to back up and say, well, they may have been using it to just be able to collect money, which doesn't still make a whole lot of sense to us when we have someone capable, knowledgeable in the manner in which they could do background checks and so forth, and relying on this third party that may be accurate, may not be, and utilizing these and dealing with the cost associated as well as the time associated with the alternative method. So it's hard to understand the choice that was made why it was made, and whether or not it was really intended for long-term, but apparently at some point was short. While it was advertising, it clearly was a short-term ad that ultimately signed up after the fact, after it was noticed, that ultimately signed up for a long-term agreement. So with that being said, that's the city maintains its position that it's a repeat violation, and with that maintains its position that a $15,000 fine would be appropriate in this circumstance.
Okay.
Anything further from the staff?
Mr. Snell, I have a question. How did the $85 a night appear?
My understanding was from discussions, and she is still here, that Airbnb just calculates that. I mean, she's not, again, she can answer that question. My understanding is, you know, because there's certain things that are missing. So it's not clearly that this was seeking that and somehow trying to get around it, playing the game. It has a one place it said check-in date, add date, checkout, add date, it looked like. And here it says check-in date 4/30, because they knew there was at least a 6-month that was coming into play. So if I may offer, she can explain that, how was 85 calculated as on that posting for the nightly rate?
It's an automatic thing that Airbnb puts in there. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. So the Airbnb automatically puts that in every listing. Even if you have a 181 night minimum, it'll cross it out once you put in your exact dates for 7 months, and it'll give you the monthly rate. But the nightly rate is just a prorated amount that they put in. And normally it could be used like, oh, you would be paying this much at a hotel. This is not me personally, but Airbnb. But you're paying $1,200 a night or $1,200 a month, so it's crossed out as like a deal. Like instead of staying at a hotel for this price, you would be paying $1,300, $1,200 a month. So nobody could actually book this unit for $85 a night. That wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't even be available until this lease was over, and then you would have to put in, like I said, 181 days if it had been open, which
75 days, to be,
yes.
75 days.
So for this situation, I opened it, and again, that is my bad. I opened it for this gentleman to book, to pay the first couple of months through Airbnb. I didn't want him to pay the full year through Airbnb because there is a lot of expenses to go in with it. And once he had that verification and deposit down, I just thought he could pay my mom
Right.
directly with a check. So that's why I opened it for 75 nights. But beyond that, you wouldn't have been able to book 75 nights even, because it would have been 181 days after April through December, January 2025.
Okay, I'm just trying, the reason I'm asking that is my quick calculation based on this lease would work out to something like $45 a night.
Right, yes. Exactly. I had the actual payment from this guy from Airbnb for the first month. I'd be happy to show you on my phone. It was like $1,235, like $1,235, because of the fees that we pay. It's less than $1,350 a month.
Generally, what you're seeing there is when you have a nightly range, you automatically put in a discount for additional days. So that's probably what Airbnb was doing. So when you put in the whole, a week, you get a weekly discount. It's very common. So you'll see a big number, and then the more days you book, the less it is.
This is something I think that should be mentioned. The ads that they're speaking of is 2021. There's been no advertising other than.
Right, 2021 was when she was violated before. I closed it. I only opened it for this man to book in October. So that's why in 2021 you're seeing the reviews. She's already been violated for that.
Yes. 2021 was her last violation. This one happened this year. Sorry.
And she's had other roommates, I'm sorry, to just not through.
This is a difficult one. As you understand, these transactions occur outside of the normal, what would I call it, scheme of things. The vacation rental type situation, and it would have been a lot easier if Ms. Niles had applied for a permit for her long-term lease, because she is leasing out a property for, according to the lease, more than 6 months and a day.
So I believe it's a roommate situation. I mean, because it's not a mother-in-law apartment that would be allowed. I know, of course, Daytona has a lot of rules about that as well, that some people have a mother-in-law apartment that is offered to them through realtors, that you can rent it. And when the city finds that they're renting this separate unit, they're like, no, because I've been here before, you cannot do that unless it's your mother-in-law or a relative. So that's not this situation. Roommates are getting to be more common for the financial benefits, and she's offered before, financial and the benefit of just having another person in the home when she lives alone. So I don't know that a roommate requires a permit when you just bring in a roommate, as opposed to offering a portion of the home that would be allowed to be a separate dwelling rented to a non-family member. I think there's a difference.
Has anyone inquired?
Has it-
Has anyone inquired as to whether or not it would require a permit or not?
I have had experience with that, if I can speak to that.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
When I moved back in 2016 into our home, and I did have a violation for cars, which ended up being dismissed, but the code enforcement officer at the time was Stevenson. And so he did come in and do a inspection of the house, and he said that as long as you weren't dorm living, you could only have one unrelated person living with you, and he said that that was fine, as long as we're sharing communal space. So I did have a roommate. My husband and I weren't married at the time, and that was okay. He said it was a little bit of a situation because I was with my husband. We were together. So he said, well, your boyfriend is visiting. You have a roommate until you guys get married, and then it's okay. So I don't know if that's my experience, is that you can be living with one unrelated person in your home, and you don't need any special permit for that. As long as you're sharing space together, they share HVAC, there's the same AC, the same washer and dryer, parking, driveway.
Unfortunately, our laws for living documents like everything else, and so
Right.
we've changed that a little, but,
Oh,
so I'm not, I mean,
Okay,
but you may still be okay, but that's another.
That was just my
conversation.
understanding, that two unrelated people can be roommates. So that's the summary of it.
Yeah, our definition of family has changed and so forth. And that's more of what's being described there. You know, that's not really what we're, only in the sense of trying to understand what's what here. But, I don't know, as I'm looking at our rental ordinance, this is an interpretation for the city staff to make. It's not formally, right, illegal. Whatever our normal practice I would expect us to maintain. But as I look at it, it very well may require a permit, so you may want to just check into it when you do that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
As a whole, but I know it was some thought to consider. I do have a copy of that. Happy to share.
I am trying to wrestle with this. We have had a nice, bright line that existed that if one utilizes the short-term rental media or programs or whatever you call them, or sites, and you're not located in one of those districts in the city that allows for short-term rentals, that you have essentially held out for a rental. And now the line is getting blurry. And I understand the argument that's being made that, you know, I don't know that there is any, I guess it gets into the question of intent, which is somewhat subjective. On the one hand, the argument, as I understand from Mr. Snell's side, is that it's a convenient way of doing certain things at are of benefit to someone who, for instance, like Ms. Niles, might be looking for a roommate. You get background check, you get criminal check, and if I understand correctly, at least there was the initial deposit or whatever could be transmitted, as opposed to maybe getting, going through a bank and doing something, where the funds are electronically wired or something of that nature. And so there are certain benefits to a long-term lessor that could arise from utilizing a short-term leasing platform. On the other hand, it is a short-term leasing platform, and in order to get access to it, you, if I understand your argument, Mr. Jackson, you have to hold out that the property is for rent. I don't think Airbnb wants their platform used for purposes other than short-term rentals. But I've heard in other instances, I mean, we've had people who've talked about family reunions and keeping track of their long-lost relatives or whatever, and all kinds of other uses that have nothing to do with it. And so it's one of those sites that is capable of, from at least Airbnb's perspective, misuse. My understanding they're in it to make money, and if people are not using it in a way that makes money for them, then to some extent they are misusing it. Now, in your case, money was transmitted, and they got a cut of it, if I understand it.
Can I add something, sir?
Yes.
So I was telling Mr. Yates that I've actually had several people book all the way through for a year on Airbnb, so Airbnb is still getting that percentage. So it's still beneficial to them, and actually a lot of people, in my experience, do travel this way, because they work remotely, they don't want a full-time lease for 5 years, they just want to stay somewhere for a year. I actually have printouts of my personal spaces that I've rented with payments for those days, if you'd like to look at them.
So are you saying that Airbnb, I've been told, and I'm not booking through Airbnb, so I'm not necessarily familiar with the website other than what I've been told in these proceedings, is that if you want to book something for longer than, for the minimum, which would be 6 months and a day, you can't.
That's not true, sir.
I have not seen that. They are saying that they could have set it for the amount, but that means that they could have set this ad up legally, but they still chose not to. So.
Well, I understand that, but I was told that it was not capable of doing it,
I have
which
not seen that it
automatically
is
made
capable
everything on Airbnb.
Of listing that. I have not seen that.
Yeah.
3 in the past reservations, payments already completed from 2023 to 2022 of people that stayed for that length of time through Airbnb and paid the fees to Airbnb. So I do, yes, for over
Now,
a
you can
year.
extend a booking, but I have never seen where you can make the calendar 6 months and a day, which is what we'd be talking about. So a minimum would have to be 181 right
I
there.
understand. I just do that all the time.
Okay.
So it's-
Yeah,
But
I would just say that you can make it for 15 years if you go day to day, which is the way the format is still set up. Then it's still a daily rate, it's still a daily pay, whether they break it down because of the monthly amount or how they break it down. And so I think we're still stuck in a format, and this is just me in my position and with this, we're still stuck in a format that's formatted for vacation rental. If that vacation is a 1-year vacation, then I guess it's a 1-year vacation, but it's formatted for that type of a rental, not for long-term rental.
Sure, again, it seems to me that there's like the strict liability. There's a snapshot that people are getting penalized for. In the testimony we're trying to offer, and apparently other people have, it is a platform that is beyond that. Maybe that's what it's known for. We're being penalized for choosing a platform that could be beneficial beyond what it's known for, short-term rentals, but it can be used beyond that because there's other benefits. Why would Airbnb care if they can be used for a long-term platform if they're getting fees? So there is a changing of that platform to adjust potentially beyond that, because other platforms are coming in that are not short-term rentals, that may be long-term, it's just a competitor. Why not open up for that?
Well, I understand your argument, except we're stuck here with the facts as they exist, and the posting to facilitate this was with a short-term rental.
Well,
And
it's not clear, my belief, that the listing is not totally clear as others may be. There are some nebulous things in that listing that may make it not as clear that this is what was being sought. In other ones, it's clear that, you know, the nightly rate, check in, check out, you don't see, my recollection, you don't see a lot of that.
No, that's all in here.
Yeah, but that's an old ad. That's 2021.
Also, the
It's
fact
not
that-
an old ad, it's time-stamped. These
Right.
pictures were taken on the 20th. This is not an old ad, this is,
Utilizing
the
the reviews and pictures from before. She didn't re-upload
No,
those
those
things.
are
but-
old from when I was.
correct, you reactivated your account that was never supposed to be reactivated, agreed.
Well, I think it's not supposed to reactivate it for the purpose of which is the violation, and the platform is expanding beyond that, and that's all we offered, sir.
Yeah, and I think that's the thin line that we're stuck with. And I don't really have anything else other than what we presented. The thin line is that it's close, and you have that opportunity to make that decision.
Right,
on
which is
how
why
you-
we're here to offer you
Mrs.
the facts,
Yeah.
that something beyond what is shown, so.
I am not having a problem with the testimony that's been, I don't disagree with the testimony, but I can't, the problem is that we're moving into the world of subjectivity, which gets really difficult. Okay, and it is what it is. It's certainly not a $15,000 fine. Okay, I certainly understand that. And unfortunately, based, and I'm really focused more on the testimony, which I understand what you're trying to do and the reasons why you're trying to do it, and it all makes sense to me. It's just that it ends up creating what appears to be holding out for rent on a short-term basis on a website. So I am looking at, I'll be honest with you, a fine, but something much lower than $15,000. Basically because it did create the appearance of holding out for rent. And everybody is, I'm just concerned about the subjectivity issue. And so I'm thinking at this point of a fine, but maybe somewhere like $200, based on what has been stated. I find the testimony to be believable, but I find that there is the objective ad that has created this issue.
Sir, that's why we're here to offer these facts and, you know, and seek
And so-
reports as mitigation, sir, with expectations on fine.
I know the city has said 15,000, but under the circumstances, I don't see it rising to that level, given the testimony that has been stated here today.
If I can just say, and again, it's a decision that you get to make, Mr. Magistrate. Our biggest issue is that this is someone who is, and I know it was 2021, but someone who has been previously violated and walked the close line knowing that they had that prior violation. Understand that the testimony and the representation and the daughter did it and not the mom, but nevertheless, that's kind of our biggest issue, and that's what we believe supports the 15,000, but we believe it clearly would support at least what would be our typical minimum if it was thought otherwise, but nothing below that. But our position is it supports a $15,000 fine, and that's why we're asking for it.
Okay, there's some, I think, as I see it, unique factors. First of all, Ms. Niles did not post this her daughter did, and I take from her testimony, and I find her testimony to be credible and believable. And so, what she has stated with respect to that all seems to be believable and logical. That they're using a website for something other than its intended use, but it's a convenient vehicle to make all of this work. And Ms. Steele is an attorney, and I don't think she's going to come before us and start saying things that are not true. So I think that these are sort of unique facts make for unique outcomes. And so I'm not trying, Ms. Niles, I'm sure understands that she shouldn't be posting anything.
Don't worry. I said that the last time I was here.
But we have something that was held out, and it appears, at least in my mind, that it was held out, but it was inadvertent. It wasn't intentional. It was put up there for a reason other than trying to get somebody to occupy that home on a short-term basis. I know that may create issues, but I have to basically end up, dealing with the testimony that's been set out before us, and I don't see anything other reason. So, do you have anything further, Mr. Jackson?
No, nothing further.
Okay. So therefore, Mr. Snell, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
So therefore, in case number 10, RTL 01-2404, I find the respondent to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A, and Article 5, Section 5.2.82 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 1045 Chafee Place, and to have subsequently come into compliance. And do we have a date on that, Mr.?
The 24th.
October 24th or November 24th?
December, 1 second.
It was October 24th, according to the screen.
Yeah.
there.
October
10/24,
24th,
yep.
2023. And based upon the unique facts of this case and the testimony that has been rendered, I hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $200 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for your time today and consideration of these facts. Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone. And Mr. Yates, you're amazing, really. This guy is good at what he does. You are an investigator and attorney. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. I know, I don't have anything else to say.
Congratulations, guys. Have a good one.
Okay, and we can follow up if necessary on, we can follow up if necessary on that other issue if we need to.
Yeah, she'll check
Wilson,
into it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that's it for my day.
Miscellaneous business. Is there any?
Not for me.
No.
Therefore, it being 11:49, I hereby call this session a special magistrate proceeding to be ended.
Okay.
Are you ready? It being 11:51 on Tuesday, February 27, 2024, the special magistrate proceeding is reconvening for the simple matter of addressing an item where the respondent was not present, and the item was continued to the end of the meeting. The respondent was to appear on Zoom and is still not present. So it is time to deal with this matter. And that is lien review 3, RTL 01-2408, 126 West Gardner Court, TR Property Group LLC, who had a fine of $15,000 for which the respondent sought a lien review. I had reviewed the petition, and I was expecting the respondent to provide information relative to this. I did not feel that I could make a decision based solely on the materials that were provided to me, and therefore I am going to deny the lien review, but without prejudice, so the respondent can refile it again so if the respondent so chooses. Do we have anything further? Okay, it being 11:53, I hereby close this session of the special magistrate proceeding.